Hello, friends. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog and, of course, another Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. What have we been watching recently? Well, I'm glad you asked. This last week, my mom was in town visiting. Yay! Her second visit since the whole COVID pandemic thing has been happening. It's been so great to have her be able to finally come back and visit us. And she, in her lockdown situation, kind of became a way more avid movie watcher than she ever was before because she had more time on her hands, obviously. So it's kind of funny every week when we have our, weekly mother-daughter phone call. She always asks me for the movie recommendations for the week, but this last week she was here with us, and so we got to watch a bunch of movies together, which was awesome. And one of my favorite things we got to do was go to the movies together this week. We saw Cape Fear from 1962 at the Academy Theater, one of my favorite theaters here in Portland. And wow, what a film. I've already actually in-depth reviewed this film on this vlog in the past because we watched the movie last year. But, it's always another experience when you go see it at the movie theater. And it's always more, and Cape Fear is no exception. I was particularly pleased to go see this film because it was actually Henry's pick. We were driving past the theater, we saw the marquee, and even though it said The Thing up at the top of the marquee, we had seen The Thing pretty recently at the Cinemagic Theater, and so Henry just kind of ignored that and read down the marquee and said, "Ooh, Cape Fear, we got to go see it." And I said, "Well, it's the 1962 version, not the 1991 version." And he goes, "I know, Mom, that's the better one." And my heart swelled with joy that my 13-year-old son here in 2021 is requesting to go see black and white film from 1962 at the theater. I even said in the car as we were driving along, "Boy, who raised you?" Because whoever it was did it right. I will take credit for that one. Sean's a really good dad too, but all the movie stuff is coming from me. So Cape Fear, directed by J. Lee Thompson. It's the classic film noir psychological thriller starring Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum is this really, really, really bad guy, Max Cady, who has been in prison for 8 years, serving a sentence because he was convicted of raping a young woman. Gregory Peck plays the attorney who it was his testimony that got Robert Mitchum's character locked up for 8 years. So when Max Cady gets out of prison, the first thing he does is track down this attorney and basically stalk him and his family, and keeps coming after them and making them feel more and more uncomfortable and doing more and more threatening things until we get the great climactic scene on the houseboat at Cape Fear. Not going to go too in depth on all that, but I will just say this is an incredible film, great acting, great writing. Robert Mitchum is really, really effectively creepy. Gregory Peck is amazing as the attorney, good guy, husband and father who's just trying to do right by his family. An incredible film. Definitely recommended if you've never seen it. If you've seen the remake made by Martin Scorsese starring Robert De Niro, that was the 1991 version, but you haven't seen the 1962 version, definitely go back and watch the 62 version. If you've never seen it, just see it because it's a great film, but especially if you are a fan of film noir, psychological thrillers, those types of things, especially as the genre was presented in the 60s, I feel like this is a just really great mark as far as to hit as far as those types of films go. So totally recommended. And then we went way more into the present time and we watched Baby Driver from 2017, written and directed by Edgar Wright, who you may know from Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and all of that. But apparently Baby Driver is actually Edgar Wright's passion project that he had been working on for like 20 years before he managed to get it made. It's a action crime film starring Ansel Elgort and Lily James. Ansel Elgort plays a character named Baby, who is a getaway driver for Kevin Spacey's crime group. And he has to keep doing these jobs for Kevin Spacey. He owes him a bunch of money. He doesn't want to be a criminal, but he's up to his neck in it and has to pay Kevin Spacey's character back. So kind of against his will, he agrees to do these jobs where he acts as the getaway driver for various robberies and heists. The really cool thing about this movie is, besides the fact that it's a very well-written movie and, I love cars and chase scenes. So a movie focused around getaway driving is obviously filled with cars and chase scenes and a lot of really cool driving. The other really cool aspect about this movie is the use of music in the movie. So the deal with Baby is he has tinnitus. He was in an accident when he was younger. And so he's continuously listening to music on headphones throughout the film, supposedly to drum out the ringing in his ears. But what Wright does with this is he times everything in the film to the music that Baby is listening to. We, as the audience, are listening along to the music that Baby is listening to on his headphones. And then as he's getting ready to do another, getaway mission, or as he's walking down the street, he's dancing down the street, and the lyrics from the song he's listened to appear on the street as he's walking by stores, as he's walking by walls with graffiti on them. That's actually the opening title sequence. There's a very cool shootout later in the movie where the bullets go to the time of the song that we're listening to. And just in general, the soundtrack is great, but the use of the music in the film and the way it integrates into the action of the film is really incredible. We actually heard about this film because we were contacted by the wardrobe department when they were making the film. Lily James's character, she plays a waitress at a diner, and she has a denim jacket, and they wanted to dress her denim jacket up and make her a little, rock and roll. And so they actually purchased some enamel pins from us, the Deal With It pickle pin and the All-American hot dog pin. And they dressed her jacket up with those pins. So when the film came out, Sean and I were like, yes, let's go see Baby Driver. We're going to go see our pins, on this jacket on the big screen, super huge. Unfortunately, in the final cut of the movie, you can't actually see our pins at all. I went through and I paused the film in the couple of shots where you can kind of get a look at them, and they're just not visible at all. I know they're there, but nobody else will ever see them. So that was a little bit of a disappointment just personally, but it's an incredible film. So I'm really glad that we found out about it and we were able to be, a tiny, basically invisible part of the film, but we're still in there somewhere. So that was what inspired us to watch it, obviously, in the first place. And then we circled back to it with the kids because Jimmy, our youngest, is super into music. And the way music integrates into movies, and he's always paying attention to it. So I said, okay, we have to watch Baby Driver. You're going to love it. And oh man, did he love it. We all did, but Jimmy was just bopping around in his chair. He immediately downloaded the soundtrack the next day and was telling me all about all the new songs that he had learned. So Baby Driver, if you are into crime films, action-packed car chase scenes, and especially the way music can integrate into a movie and really amplify your sense of what's going on in the film, totally recommended. Also, great supporting cast. John Hamm, John Bernthal, Jamie Foxx is in it. He's great. Terrible. Great. So yeah, Baby Driver is totally recommended. And then the next night after we watched Baby Driver, Sean said, okay, you want a movie that has killer music integrated into it. We got to watch Trainspotting. So we watched Trainspotting from 1996, directed by Danny Boyle, of course, starring Ewan McGregor and a bunch of other people, but he's like the standout star of the film. I personally think it's the second best role he's ever had. My favorite Ewan McGregor film is The Pillow Book, which actually came out the same year as Trainspotting, but most people haven't seen it. But enough about that. What about Trainspotting? Trainspotting is an incredible film. It's a black comedy / drama, I guess, about young adults living in Scotland who are heroin addicts. And it follows them around and, sees the ups and downs of their junkie lifestyle. The music and the way that it's integrated, similar to Baby Driver, it's incredible. The music in Trainspotting is 10 times better than the music in Baby Driver. And of course, the iconic opening sequence with Lust for Life by Iggy Pop playing while the boys are running down the street to the beat of the music. It can't be beat. It's my second favorite scene in the movie after, of course, the worst toilet in Scotland scene, which, boy, does it hold up. Totally disgusting and hilarious at the same time, just as great as it ever was. I will say this movie definitely hits different 25 years later, having lived through 25 years of the worsening opioid crisis in America. It's definitely a different feeling. It never portrayed doing heroin as like something that you should do or anything to copy. But again, having lived through the sort of slide into that America and especially the Pacific Northwest has experienced in the last 25 years, I walk out my door and most days I see used needles on the ground somewhere in the neighborhood. Most days, I usually run across a person who is out of their mind on drugs. And it's not great. So it definitely, it felt different. Obviously I'm more mature now. I also will say there is a disturbing scene with a baby in the movie. Just a warning. When I first saw the film when I was 20 years old, it didn't bug me that much. I mean, it bugged me because it's designed to bug you. But it way bugged me more after I saw it, after having kids and being a mom. It totally affected me differently. And so this was my third time watching the film since then. And I had to kind of brace myself. And so I knew it was coming and I was like, okay. It's a movie. It's imaginary. You don't have to be totally affected by it. And I made it through this time, but warning, if you're a mom, especially a mom with a young baby, there's some intense stuff in the middle of this movie. So, but I do think Trainspotting is amazing and should probably be seen by everybody who, isn't a pearl clutching prude who's just going to like fall over if they are exposed to the concepts of the movie. And then after that, we decided to take our turn into horror. I mean, we always watch a lot of horror, but hello, it's October. Halloween is coming. A lot of people take their turn towards spooky this time of year. We are no exception. We actually have an entire October suggested watch list. It's actually in conjunction with our currently running Kickstarter, which is for Sean's Halloween book. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link down below to the Kickstarter itself. On the Kickstarter page, you can see the October calendar, which actually includes a Halloween activity, a drawing prompt, and then a movie suggestion for each day of the month of October. We're not going to stick to our own list super strictly. A lot of the films on the list are ones that we've seen pretty recently, so we're going to skip those ones and substitute other things in. But this is our collective, the family came up with it together. Our cinema club suggested Halloween spooky watch list. And so we have been picking from the watch list and skipping the watch list and whatnot. But I just wanted to make you guys aware that that watch list does exist. And please check out the Kickstarter as well, because we would love to have you back it and bring this book to life. But that said, we decided to move into horror, and my mom was here, like I said, and she's not the biggest horror fan, but she has watched some horror movies with us. And she has gotten into them with us. And so we were sitting down talking about what to watch, and the concept of Dead Alive or Brain Dead came up. And I realized that my mom had never seen it. And I said, okay, Mom, this is a very funny horror movie, but it is also probably one of the goriest movies I've ever seen in my life. But I think you can handle it. And she said, okay, let's give it a go. And we watched it, and she loved it because who doesn't love Dead Alive? If you don't know this title, Dead Alive is a film from 1992 made by Peter Jackson. Yes, that Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson. I think it is possibly the best film he ever made. Definitely represents a peak of his career. I think that the Lord of the Rings movies are not nearly as good as Dead Alive and Bad Taste and some of the other earlier stuff that he was doing. If you are a fan of the zombie genre, and especially comedy horror and splatter, and you have not seen Dead Alive, you need to see this movie. It is required viewing if you consider yourself an aficionado of any of those things. It is very funny. It holds up to, I mean, I don't even know how many times I've seen it. It's hilarious every time I watch it. So I'd say it holds up to infinite views. You could probably watch it, well, I wouldn't say every day, but you could probably watch this movie 3 times a year for your whole life and never get tired of it, because that's how good it is and that's how funny it is. I learned in my research this time that the climactic scene, which I'm not going to say what happens in it, but if you've seen the movie, you know the scene, they used 80 gallons of fake blood for that scene. So just to give you an idea of how gory this film is. It also contains the one of my favorite lines from a horror movie ever, when the priest comes out and finds the zombies in his graveyard and he says, "I kick ass for the Lord," and then proceeds to get into a kung fu battle with zombies in a graveyard. Okay, I hope I'm giving you enough flavor of this movie. I'm not going to give you any of the plot detail, because if I've piqued your curiosity, you definitely need to see Dead Alive. Absolutely one of the funniest, goriest comedy horror movies of all time. And then speaking of kind of groundbreaking horror movies, we decided to watch Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 back to back. Hellraiser 2 was not my choice, but we decided to watch Hellraiser, of course, 1987, written and directed by Clive Barker. It is iconic. It is groundbreaking. It is crazy to think about this movie coming out in 1987. I had to like stop it at one point. You know, you've got the puzzle box. You open the puzzle box, the Cenobites show up from hell, they're gonna rip you apart with chains, they suddenly have like a rotating meat pillar in the room. You've got, you know, the guy who's been ripped apart by chains then is like regenerating himself through like a crazy murder adultery pact. This movie has it all. It's kind of amazing to think about it now as coming out in 1987. And that's the thing, I had to pause the movie and explain to the kids. I was like, you know, nowadays, you go to any mall in America this month, there's going to be a Spirit Halloween store. You can walk into Spirit Halloween store and you can see stuff that you can buy that's like as gory, scary, or worse than what you see in Hellraiser, right? But in 1987, that was like off the wall, crazy shit. It was like, what is this movie when you saw it? So, you know, sometimes I have to just kind of stop things and give the kids that perspective, because, you know, they're so kind of soaked in the horror genre all the time because we watch that stuff and we just, you know, we're into weirdness and we just experience it just kind of as the background of whatever we're into. But I really had to make the point for them how wild it was when this movie came out, and that it's basically, I mean, the Cenobites are like sadomasochistic demons from hell who are going to show you the most pleasure, which is also the most pain. So that was also like weird for 1987 and very like, you know, I felt like when I first saw this film, I was like, wow, they got away with a lot in this movie. So incredible film. Really, I feel like the effects hold up because they're practical. There's some kind of cheesy animated things near the very end, but I didn't have a problem with them. I found it very scary. I found it very gross. Not that disturbing, but again, not my first rodeo here. But yeah, Hellraiser, an amazing film. So then the next night, Henry was like, well, we got to watch Hellraiser 2. And I said, okay, we can. And it's going to expand the universe for you. But it's another one of these franchises where it's like the first one is so good, and then it just falls off a cliff with the second one, and then just like keeps going down. And I will admit, you guys, I stopped paying attention to Hellraiser movies after like the 6th one. I had no idea there's 10 of these movies. I don't think they're good. I mean, the first one, again, incredible. And the universe that is, you know, being drawn from is great. And I even remember in the early 90s, there was like a lot of Hellraiser comic books that came out that were pretty cool, sort of twists on it. But I cannot get that into the other Hellraiser movies after the first one. So I'm definitely recommending the first Hellraiser to any horror fan or anyone who's into kind of that more extreme stuff. But I definitely, if you're super bored and you love the universe, sure, keep watching them, but I'm not going to waste my time on more Hellraiser movies. And the last movie that I want to talk about this week is The Cars That Ate Paris, 1974, directed by Peter Weir. My friend Karen recommended this to me probably a year ago, and I was looking around for it online. I couldn't find anywhere to stream it. It's just been on my watch list forever. And this last summer, Criterion added a bunch of Australian new wave films, and this movie was added as part of that. And so I finally got to see it. It is weird, and not very well written, but it has a cool concept. So it's about this town called Paris, Australia, where there's a series of car accidents, and it turns out that the residents of the town are causing the car accidents so that they can scrap the cars for parts and make the cars into these crazy, like, art car, war car things. The one on the poster for the movie has like 4-foot long metal spikes sticking out in every direction. But you guys know I'm a car guy. So my favorite part of the movie was all of the wild cars that they were building in this town out of the parts of the wrecked cars. But it's got other interesting, weird concept stuff. They're like lobotomizing people in the town to turn them into vegetables. There's this there's this wild costume ball at one point in the movie and the costumes are just really weird. And like I said, it's an interesting concept, maybe even an interesting story, but the pacing and the writing are pretty bad. So, it's an hour and a half long movie. I felt like it was like a 2.5 hour long movie. And there were parts where I was like, wait, I'm having trouble following the plot. So this was definitely an interesting one, and I am not recommending it. But if you like Peter Weir's other films and want to see where he got his start, if you like crazy car movies, this is definitely a good crazy car movie. And it fits into kind of like the Australian crazy car movies of the late 70s. Or, you're just into kind of like art weirdness, horror comedy, and you don't really care if it's not that well written, go for it. But if you're expecting like a neat narrative that's got good writing and good pacing, this movie is not that. So yeah, I don't know if I'm recommending that one, but there you go. That's my take on The Cars That Ate Paris. The kids and Sean gave it wildly different reviews. I think Jimmy gave it like a 6.5 out of 10, and Sean gave it like a 3 out of 10. So, there you have it. And that's what we watched this last week. And like I said, we do have a watch list coming up, and we are getting ready to watch some exciting things on the watch list coming up. The first week of the watch list includes things like Frankenstein from 1931, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, original Night of the Living Dead, Bell Book and Candle, Beetlejuice, The Omen. There's a ton of great stuff on there. So let me know what you guys are watching for spooky season, and if you're going to be watching stuff from our watch list, if you're going to watch along with us or what. I, of course, would love to hear about it. I will be back in a few more days with another episode of my vlog, and until then, stay safe out there, take care, and thanks so much for watching.